Happy birthday, Sebastian. We'll start it out with that. Happy birthday to us Leos. All right, the GigaTen coming just under the wire for July. We have number one, corporate net zero playbook and books. Talk to me about some of these standards that people need to adhere to, or perhaps not, depending.
Yeah,
2030.
at London Climate Action Week, or just before, essentially there were two big news. One was that we finally have a final SBTI, Science-Based Target Initiative, net zero standard. And the other one is that we have a draft net zero standard by the ISO, which is very, people didn't know if they were going to compete, if they were going to become complementary. But why is this important? Because this is really the playbook for a lot of corporates today that are trying to decarbonize. And for anyone who's followed this, there's been years of consultations back and forth. It looked good, it looked awful. We landed somewhere in the middle for SBTI. And the punchline is that before 2035, companies will be, I guess, praised, recognized for buying CDR. And after 2035, they have to buy CDR, and it gradually ramps up to net zero. So it's decent, and some of the roadblocks were removed. And ISO is still in draft, but it's very complementary because it tries to catch all the companies that don't voluntarily sign up for a corporate target. So imagine a steel producer in Mozambique. They're not going to be an SBTI company, but they could be covered by ISO. And so it's a bit more loose, a bit less stringent, but it could be much wider in scope.
Interesting. You know, I was on a call this last week with someone that brought up a term that I've encountered, but I didn't encounter the term, which is green hush. Have you heard that term? Green hush. And I find it interesting that this addresses what people can do when a lot of people are maybe doing and not saying. How do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we sadly live in a world where a company that does something is likely to get bashed, and a company that does nothing, or that does something and doesn't say anything about it, like green hushing, right? That they are fine. So it's a very odd world, and hopefully some of these frameworks will create more clarity and allow companies to be much more vocal, because that's the whole point.
Yeah, that is the whole point. But I find it interesting. I said, someone finally termed that phrase, or maybe it's been around for a while, but I hadn't heard it. So, all right, number two, CDR could be the EU. Excuse me, let me try that again. Number two, CDR could be the EU ETS's safety valve. How so?
So at the time we're recording this, it's hard not to mention that the proposal in Europe has dropped for how to integrate carbon removals into the ETS. It hadn't by the time I wrote this newsletter. We're going to cover that in depth in the next one, but just to say that there is a clear path for carbon removals to be integrated into the ETS. And what I covered this topic a lot over the last years, and especially over the last months. And there's been an interesting study which has kind of confirmed something that I've been saying for a long time, which is carbon removals can take some of the pressure out of the ETS by essentially creating, we spoke about this before, a cost ceiling in the ETS. And the specific study essentially estimated how big these cost savings could be and how much CDR would be needed to make that happen. And that's a very compelling argument. And it's one of the many reasons why this should happen, and this hopefully will happen. But yeah, the whole ETS topic is one that probably we're going to spend. That's probably where I spend 80-90% of my brain right now. So yeah, we're going to cover it in depth.
Well, it makes sense because stabilized pricing helps grow the market, right? As it becomes predictable. So that's very helpful, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Number three, front-loading future CDR demand. More on the ETS.
More on the ETS. This time it's a peer-reviewed paper I published through the American University with my co-author and partner in crime, Rafael Cario, who I've published a lot with. And we essentially looked at, and this is very timely based on the proposal that we saw, there's this idea that in the 2030s, the EU can just buy carbon removals, and they're going to be there, and there's going to be megatons of it, and everything's going to be great. But if we don't develop the capacity now, we won't have the supply and we won't have it at the prices we want. And so what we've looked at is essentially this idea of front loading. So you have future revenues from this emission trading system, and you can create essentially bonds that can be used for investment now based on that future revenue. And there's precedents in other sectors for that, where Europe has already done it. And we basically modeled what would happen if this were done for CDR. So basically, if we use future ETS revenue to help scale up CDR in the next six to 8 years, and compared it to a delay of 6 years and a delay of 12 years. And the short answer is we're going to miserably fail all our goals if we don't start investing in it now. And this is a pragmatic way of how we could do it that has already been done in other areas of the EU.
And it's all going to renewables, I'm assuming, and improving ag and things and efficiencies, or where's it going?
The majority of the money of the ETS, which currently is around 40 billion a year in revenue, but it will go up, is going towards decarbonization. Although there has been criticism because it's generated at the member state level in the 27 member states, and then they're supposed to spend it like this. And comes out, they don't. They use it to fill budgetary holes. And so one of the reforms that they want to do now is to say at least 50% has to be spent on decarbonization.
Right.
But yeah, in theory, this is what it's supposed to do.
That's funny. That makes sense. All right, on to the number 4. We have Norway's answer to 45Q. Explain both.
There's a great acronym, NOAX. Which is a
never fails. This industry never fails on the acronyms.
NOAX, which is need to look this up. I don't have it yet, but they're basically the Norwegian auction scheme for carbon capture and storage, and that is in consultation right now. But it's a very interesting scheme. We knew that Norway was working on its own answer to the US 45Q tax credit to attract some of those CCS companies. And the idea now is to have an auction scheme for CCS, so not just carbon removals, but it includes stacks, it includes bio-CCS. And they offer up to 340 euros a ton, which is actually very high, almost double 45Q, for facilities that do more than 5,000 tons a year. And the other interesting thing is that this will have very long time horizon, so into the 2040s, which is something that suppliers probably like. Or definitely like. So it's interesting. We're seeing Norway step up. They already have kind of the monopoly on, not the monopoly, but they're leading on storage in Europe. And now they're also looking at developing essentially the capture capacity alongside it.
I mean, it's homegrown. They're not working with like Cell or other, it's their own storage companies, I'm assuming.
Yeah. I mean, anyone can go there and set up shop. And I know of a bunch of companies that are looking at operating projects in Norway now. But it is only for domestic. Yeah.
Number 5, CDR's Magical Mystery Tour. Yes, pilots are always very convincing, right? And projects that people can see. So what happened?
See it to believe it. Part 2, after our very successful experience tour in Germany last year in the west of Germany, we did another one in the south of Germany. This time we had almost 30 members of federal and the Bavarian parliament on board, plus probably like another 30 corporate CSOs and some journalists. And it was amazing. Basically 2 days packed with project visits. In the heat wave, we went to Dirk's greenhouse where it was 42 degrees in the greenhouse. You can imagine how that went.
Oh my
Thankfully,
gosh.
people left the suits at home that day. But it was fantastic, very well organized, and it's just invaluable for people to see the whole range. We showed everything, again, from kind of afforestation to ERW to biochar to DAX to bio-CCS. And had great co-sponsors like BMW who hosted us in their museum. And it was a big success. And again, I really encourage anyone around the world to start hosting these, because as I keep saying, 5 years ago, you had to fly everyone to Iceland. That's not true anymore. You can do experience tours on pretty much every corner of the planet now. Highly encouraged to do so.
That's great. I love that. Now I can go to Frontier. So number 6, Frontier very nearly doubles down. Yes, they almost raised another $1 billion. Good for them.
It is good. We didn't know because their first billion was meant to be until 2030, right? And there was always this question, what's going to happen after? And now they announced their next almost $1 billion, which is fantastic news. It's also great to see new buyers enter the space. And the first big AI company, Anthropic, joined Frontier. So it's really good news all around. And this time they're going to do things a bit differently. They're going to keep kind of their funding for early stage, for R&D, but they really want to double down on taking a couple of big bets. So they're looking at a couple of companies that can really scale and that have ideally also the government backing to do so. So they're looking at this kind of public-private partnership model. We'll see where they deploy the money. But yeah, overall, obviously, with Microsoft kind of slowing down and Frontier being the second biggest buyer in the space, it's very exciting to see them doubling down.
Any guesses who might be receiving some of that?
I mean, if you look at their kind of past purchases, one thing to note is obviously that they haven't done any biochar, and I don't expect them to do any biochar. That doesn't fit their criteria, so it won't be that. They will probably do, and we should already hear some announcements this year. They're probably going to do a couple of big bio CCS bets. That's just a very scalable model that kind of fits that public-private mold. So I would say bio CCS for sure. And then the question is, is it going to be biomass burial? Is it going to be ELW? Is it going to be bio oil? Something of that as well. But I would put my bets on bio CCS.
The person that's running this is now going to be CDR's new front woman, Hannah Bevington Valori, if I'm pronouncing her name properly.
Yes, she's been with Frontier for a while, and she's replacing or taking over the reins from Nan Ransohoff, who left Frontier. And they timed this transition with the new fund. And I mean, we had Hannah on the Policy Scoop as well. She's fantastic, very driven, very passionate, also does great podcasts and writes a lot about the space. And so, yeah, anyone who wants to stay close to what Frontier is doing should obviously give her a follow and listen to her content.
And back to ongoing confounding topic, CDR in the United States. We have number 8, the U.S.'s stalled engine. Money there, but not deployed. What's happening?
Yeah, that is the dilemma in the US. You've got a Congress that's supportive of CDR. You've got, as per this report from Carbon 180, the leading NGO in the US on CDR, you've got over $5 billion of unappropriated funding. And so the question is, how do we get that deployed? And they wrote a nice report, the US Federal Policy Roadmap, where they go through all the options of essentially what should we be working on now? And how do we unlock some of this capital over the coming years? And yeah, next month we're probably going to talk more about the US because there are interesting developments. I think it's worth covering. It's much better than people assume for carbon removals overall, but there is a lot of unspent money. And so grateful that Carbon 180 is trying to get creative about how to get access to that.
Yeah, I always figured that the states would play a role in keeping that money flowing. There was too much to lose from the state level,
And they are to a certain extent, right? Like we're seeing that where the money is unlocked, it's because a governor gets involved and essentially pushes for it. But even there,
Exactly.
it's hard to get that kind of high level support for every single project.
Mm-hmm. No, I get it. And by the way, there's someone again is trying to ban biochar or pyrolysis in New York from a different place. But, I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but it's still happening. I'm actually asking for a lunch with that person when I get back because I'm very curious to hear what the argument is anyway. So it's difficult. So number 9, lights, camera, biochar on that subject. Yes, I think more education through film is very important. So yeah, I see that there are a couple more films coming out on biochar and fire.
You know a few things about this, right? But I mean, it's very timely. There's wildfires raging all over North America and Europe. It's the worst, at least Europe has ever seen. And we said that last year, and we're probably going to say it next year. That's the sad story, right? And I've been trying to cover this topic of wildfires and biochar just more because it's such an obvious one. But this is not about my own documentary, which I shot on this topic a few months ago. This is actually by the US Forest Service, which together with the American Biochar Institute has produced a beautiful documentary about wildfire mitigation in the US. And they show essentially different companies that are doing it in the west of the US. and that are deploying mobile pyrolysis units, clearing up forest fire residues. So yeah, it's a fantastic short documentary that I think is as timely as ever.
Last but not least, I do agree with you. Number 10, climate change is no joke. There's some really funny memes coming out of the carbon removal meme factory. And I did see the one with Jonathan Foley. I thought that was pretty funny, tagging you guys.
Honestly, my favorite content on my feed is CDR memes. I love those guys. I think they're doing a terrific job. Uh, they're so witty and spot on with their content. And yes, I very proudly made a meme of them. Made a meme, which yeah, I guess is something that doesn't happen often. But no, they're great. You should follow them. Anyone should, and get a bit of a laugh while we're working hard to
Yeah, they're
change
funny.
things.
I know. I think things are gonna, I've had a lot of people call me this week specifically because of the fires and the flood. There's a lot of flooding in New York right now, even though I'm not there at the moment. But
Ah, I didn't
you
know.
know, really freaking out. Oh gosh, a 1,000 year flood. Actually, in my hometown, it's underwater. But what's interesting is um, people now are calling to say, "Oh my God, they're freaking out and they want some sort of like, who do I call?" And I said, "Well, it's engineering, it's law, it's policy. It's a lot of people are like, who I can call this famous person and they can make some phone calls to other famous people." I said, that's not going to be how we get out of this, right? We need to legislate our way, create business models, create viable companies. That's how we get out of this, right? So,
Yeah, that's it. It was a busy month. I can already promise that the next one will be even busier because a lot of stuff has happened in the last few days and weeks. And yeah, thank you, Leila, for finding the time. I hope that things in your hometown will be okay. And yeah, just one more reminder why we're doing the work we're doing. So thanks for today.
that is exactly right.